Now get the fuck out of here. You had your chance to be a very good franchise and you blew it. With one bad sequel. Hey everyone, it's Movie Lover Warren 20 here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review, and this review is going to be for the second installment and final installment, aka the only sequel to the movie I reviewed last time, and y'all remember that was Kick-Ass. So, of course, we all know, around 2013 this movie got a sequel, called Kick-Ass 2. And I gotta say, when I heard there was going to be a sequel to this movie, I was really pumped. Like, I loved the first one of the funniest and best comic book movies of all time. But then, of course, it turned out Matthew Vaughn was not coming back. And I really started to get worried. And then they brought in a guy named Jeff Wadlow to redirect it. And basically, this guy directed pure stinkers, like this horror film called Cry Wolf. And then this forgotten easily boxing movie called Never Back Down. Yeah. Of all the directors you had to pick to replace Matthew Vaughn when he was directing X-Men First Class, this was the guy they thought would be good. To make matters worse, the rights were no longer at Lionsgate, where they should have stayed. Instead, they went to Universal. Perfect idea. And pretty much this movie was just doomed from the start. They waited too long to make this movie. They waited like 3 years when the comic version of this film took place 6 months after the first comic. So yeah, they waited way too long. And so when the movie came out, critics hated it. It bombed at the box office compared to its first film, which actually made a decent amount for a sequel. Made like about 96 million. This one only made like 60 million worldwide. And it wasn't just because of the bad reviews. It was also because the movie got leaked. Some moron had to go leak the movie and ruin any chances for this movie to make money and get a third film. But then again, I don't think it would have been a box office hit either way. I mean, it was poorly received by people. It probably would have still bombed regardless. But let's get on with what the movie's about. Well, self-made superhero Kick-Ass and sweet-faced villain-off assassin Hit Girl will try to return to life as normal teenagers, but soon they're faced with the deadliest challenge yet. Red Mist, now trying to seek revenge for his father's death, has now reinvented himself as the leader of an evil league of supervillains known as the Motherfucker. To defeat their new nemesis, Kick-Ass and Hit Girl must become superheroes again and team up with a new wave of masked crusaders, led by the badass Colonel Stars and Stripes Jim, who's played by Jim Carrey, except he's only in the movie for like 10 minutes and actually refused to support the movie or promote it. And we'll get to that part in a little bit. In this battle of real-life villains and heroes. So like I said, in 2010, a first movie came out that became one of those fan favorites. And have you seen it yet? Movies. It was pretty popular. It was talked about so much. It was pretty easy to lose for most people because it was another movie based off a comic book. But it wasn't like most comic book movies, maybe a little like Batman, but only if Batman were in high school and had no money. That first film was about some regular teenager who wanted to fight crime. No special powers, just a green scuba wetsuit, a couple batons, and a can-do attitude. The first movie, reason why it was so fun, because it combined action and comedy and did it the right way, especially because of the director Matthew Vaughn. Even capture lighting in a ball twice can be kind of a hard thing to do, and not many movie franchises have pulled it off. In this installment, like, Dave Lazuski, aka Kick-Ass, hardly wears his Kick-Ass costume too often much. He's pretty much now just your average high school senior trying to figure out life. Meanwhile, Mindy and Hit Girl knows what she wants to do with her life, and has continued what her and her father did before his untimely death. And then Kick-Ass decides he wants to get back to being a superhero and start to train with Hit Girl so that they and become the new dynamic duo. Eventually, then Kick-Ass found other guys like himself who wear caution to help keep the streets clean. While Chris D'Amico is now the new typical attempting to be this intimidating bad guy who's wanting revenge on Kick-Ass for blowing up his father with a bazooka at the end of the first movie. So D'Amico himself forms his own team of bad guys, known as the Toxic Mega Cunts. And we all know where it goes from there. So yeah, I did see the movie, and like many people, I really did not like it. I loved the first movie so much, this one not so much. I mean, when I first saw it, I tried to convince myself that I kind of enjoyed this movie, but more and more I watched it, the less and less I liked it. Even rewatched it during lockdown last year, and even then I even further less disliked it. Every time I watch this movie, it's like, yeah, no, I'd rather watch the first one. The first one's way better. Because the first one was this over-the-top bloodbath. And I really got a kick out of it, because it's really unlike anything ever. For the first hour, the sequel works like, it started to turn out good for the first hour, but then it really takes a dark turn and a turn for the worst. There's still some like hilarious moments, but sometimes it really goes too far. Even for a sequel for Kick-Ass, it's very violent, but it barely feels violent like the original movie. It barely feels dark like the original movie still kind of was. I mean, the original movie wasn't very faithful to the comic, but there were still dark moments in it. There were still some dark moments from the comic. I mean, at least it didn't shy too much away from the graphic stuff. While removing a few things, obviously, because the comics are worse. Guys, if you have not read the comics, I would just be warned, the comics are not for the squeamish. They're, much more brutal. I've read some bits of the comic, it's pretty disturbing. All the comics are pretty darn disturbing. And this movie's even more unfaithful to the comic, but with this movie adaptation, knowing the comics, it makes a little more sense. They cut a lot of stuff out. I mean, but one of the main flaws of Turning Point, once the actual story kicks in, the movie can't even find its footing. The original even took a dark turn, but it ended up kicking ass in the end. It ended up being a great movie. Obviously, this one does that too, but it ends up being a bad movie. And I really did not like what Jeff Waddle did with this movie. I kept trying to figure out what was wrong, why this movie ended up being so wrong for the first hour. Then it really hit me bad. I just realized this franchise was already fucked. No chance of it becoming a trilogy. No chance of... We could have had a great franchise, and it went down the drain fast. Already losing its fans. The story is just mostly Red Mist's character wanting revenge on Kick-Ass for killing his father in the first movie. Except now he has a different name and a little more of a vulgar extreme name. And he end up recruiting an army of superheroes, evil supervillains, and together they go after the heroes. And another annoying flaw is that Hit Girl's barely in much of the movie in the first half. Most of the movie, it's just Mindy trying to fit in a high school or freshman year. Basically, think of a really crap version of Mean Girls. That's basically what her story is. Arc is. And it could be more boring. Face it, it's very much just a shorter version of the film Mean Girls. Three popular girls take her in, try to advise her on what to do and how to act. But then Mindy blows away the competition at dance trials, the most popular girl takes offense, and the treatment of Mindy turns sour. That's what it is. And of course, there's another thing. Jim Carrey, who was in this movie for only like 10 minutes, chose not to promote the movie after those high school shootings. I can understand why, but that also kind of blows this movie's chances of being a box office hit, really. I mean, they honestly should have released. If this movie should have been released earlier, it should have been released in 2012, not 2013. 2012, it probably would have made a little bit more money. It probably would have did better. I mean, the comic book gap isn't even that long. I mean, the comic book version of the sequel took place 6 months after the first comic book. This one takes somehow 2 years. Like, really? Sorry about that. And they took out a lot of stuff from the comic book too. I mean, here's one change to the comic I actually kind of like that they did. I mean, when the Toxic Megacons kill Colonel Stars and Stripes, and someone's like, want me to kill his dog, and then Chris is like, the dog, like, something I'm not that evil. I mean, kind of glad they didn't do that, because in the comic book they actually did kill the dog, except in a very grisly way, and then of course they attempted to rape one of the members of Justice Forever, that aka Kick-Ass's like new girlfriend, and Night Bitch, yeah, that's her name. They basically break into her home, they attempt to rape her, but of course, like, he's unable to. Apparently, it turns out Chris isn't even in the mood, but actually, I mean, now Chris does technically rape her in the comics, but they of course they obviously edited it out, because apparently Christopher Mintz-Plasse didn't actually want to do a rape scene, so they took it out, which I guess was for the best, because once the cops show up in this scene, in that scene where they kill all the cops, like, they don't just kill the cops, they kill like neighbors, and they even kill children in the comic book. So yeah, I can see why they took that part out as well. So it does get annoying when they kind of take out a lot of stuff from comic book, but with this film it does kind of make sense in a little bit of a way. But and plus this movie, but that's kind of the thing. The original felt way darker. I kind of wish they didn't make this movie too lighthearted. This film felt way too soft at times, and it just really did not sit well for me. I mean, whenever they did try to be serious, it really failed. This movie feels way too much like a comedy at times. Like, the original movie was a comedy too, but it had serious moments. It knew when to be serious, and it knew when to be funny. This one just tries way too hard to be funny almost every single scene. And even when they do try to be serious, it ends up being way too laughable. I feel like if this movie were released a little bit earlier, not 3 years after, and still had Matthew Vaughn, if Matthew Vaughn didn't go direct First Class and he still directed this sequel, it probably could have turned out to be decent. It probably could have still made more money than the first film. It still would have been pretty good. But another thing about the comic book. The comic book version of the sequel actually ends on kind of a cliffhanger. It ended with Hit Girl getting arrested, and a few other Justice Forever members getting arrested and stuff. This one actually ends with Hit Girl leaving New York. Kind of more bittersweet notes. And a little bit of a happier note. So I think they probably knew this movie wouldn't really make money. And probably people wouldn't like it. Probably people wouldn't really see it. They probably knew it would flop from the start. So I guess they kind of changed the ending to make it a little happier, because if this sequel got a cliffhanger ending and still bombed, it would have been a horror. It really would have infuriated a lot of people, because we'd be left waiting for a sequel we never got, like with The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So I'm kind of glad about that stuff. And so all in all, my prediction of this sequel, I don't hate it. I don't think it's one of the worst sequels, but I really do not like it. I'd still rather watch the first film. And honestly, if you haven't seen any of these movies yet, just watch the first film and only the first film, and heck, even just go rewatch the first film if you've already seen it, because that movie's way better than this film. If you like this movie, I respect that opinion, guys. I personally don't like it. I would rather just watch the first movie a million more times. But anyway, This pretty much destroyed. This was pretty much how to destroy a franchise with just one sequel. One. Anyway, yeah, and a sequel that had potential to be pretty good. And it already got fucked. Anyway, here's how I would rank it.
I am going to give Kick-Ass 2 a 5 out of 10.
Here we go. Now I just reviewed both the Kick-Ass movies. I don't know what I'll review next, but it'll be something. But anyway, that'll be the first video. Thank y'all for watching. And if you like this and want to see more, then don't forget to like and subscribe to Movie Lover 120.